and welcome to the X-22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 212, and today's date is November 11th, 2013, and the title of this episode is Al-Qaeda Threatening America on Veterans Day. And I'd just like to say thank you to all the veterans. Thank you for making the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you for fighting for us to keep our way of life. And I really appreciate everything that you do and the sacrifices that you make. I'm sure all the listeners also appreciate you and salute you. Just once again, thank you so much. And before I get started, I just want to say thank you to all those people who've donated over the weekend. I do appreciate it. It keeps the x22report.com site going and the forum site continually going. And I do appreciate all those people in the people, talking and welcoming other people who join. And if you haven't join the people, you can come on over. Just a link right on top of the x22report.com site. It is completely free. All you need is your name or a code name or a handle, whatever you have, an email address, and you're ready to go in there and start talking to like-minded people that are talking about the economic collapse and many other things. And there are some really great discussions going on there. But let's get started with the economic collapse news. Now, in Japan, the people out there, the citizens, are starting to complain right now. They're saying that avionics, it is not working for them at all. Prices in Japan are rising, but wages aren't. Taxes have risen massively, and you'll never guess this, the Prime Minister wants to raise taxes even more. He wants more tax hikes. Interest on savings accounts does not keep up with price increases. What we are seeing right now is people cannot live. It's the same going on throughout Europe. It's the same going on here in the United States. Wages are going down. Prices are going up. People have to dig into their savings. They cannot survive. And the proportion has reached 31%. The most since 1963, and right now the Japanese people do not have savings. They are digging in there, trying to help themselves get through this, and it is not working at all. And right now the tax rate increase has hit an all-time high of 60%, and right now the Prime Minister, Abe, what he is saying to Japanese firms, he's telling them to stop sitting on cash, ignore the lack of customers, and start spending your money. And you know how this is going to turn out. No customers, no revenue, don't hold your cash, spend money, and it is just going to end horrifically for the Japanese people, and this is going to spread throughout Europe. It's going to spread into the United States, and this whole thing cannot be sustained, and we are starting to see many cracks in the wall. Water is leaking through. We do not have enough fingers to hold all the cracks, and eventually the whole entire wall is going to come crumbling down, and there will be no way to stop this gushing of this tidal wave of water coming out of it. It will be completely impossible. And if we look at Europe and we go to Spain right now, Spain, is reporting that, same with France and all the other countries, that during the summer, all the propaganda that everything was going well and things were happening and they're coming out of the recession. But we're finding more information right now that is shedding some light of what is happening in these countries, and especially in Spain. Now, one of the biggest questions in Spain is, why did the country's mortgage delinquency rise so slowly even as unemployment was skyrocketing to 26+%? And what they've found out is that the Spanish lenders have been making their loan books look healthier than they really were by refinancing big numbers of loans to struggling homeowners and businesses. And what has happened is a lot of these people who got their loans refinanced haven't made any payments on them whatsoever. And what we are seeing right now is mortgage delinquencies is rising very fast. But what's happening is the bank is not reporting them. It's just keeping them on the books. And we're actually seeing this in the United States. I know a couple of people, and people have written into me saying that they have not, and I know a couple of people who have not paid on their homes. The banks have not foreclosed, and they are allowed to live there with no problem. And we are definitely seeing this happen all over the place because the banks are keeping the homes on the books and not reporting them as foreclosures. And this way, these houses do not go back on the market, because if they let the shadow inventory back on the market, the housing market will completely collapse. And we're seeing this happen all over the place right now. Okay, now we know today is Veterans Day, but there's been a report that has come out that veterans have dropped out of the workforce, and it is up 101.4% since Obama has taken office. And we are not, I mean, we are seeing this, the unemployment rate is just unbelievably bad. But again, we have to remember the government has manipulated the numbers, so we are not really seeing the true numbers. But here's some facts that show a different picture of what is happening here in the U.S. The percentage of working age Americans with a job fell to 58.3% in October, the lowest that number has been at any point since the year 2000. In other words, there has been absolutely no jobs recovery at this time. The U.S. economy has lost 623,000 full-time jobs last month. But we are being told to believe that the economy is actually getting better. The number of American women with a job fell by 357,000 during the month of October. The average duration of unemployment in October was nearly 3 times as long as it was in October of 2000. The number of Americans not in the labor force increased by an astounding 932,000 during October. The number of Americans not in the labor force has grown by more than 11 million since Barack Obama first entered the White House. In October, the U.S. labor force participation rate fell from 63.2% to 62.8%. It is now the lowest that it has been since 1978. Even if you are working, that does not mean that you are able to take care of yourself and your family without any help. In fact, approximately 1 out of every 4 part-time worker in America is living below the poverty line. In January 2000, there were 75 million working-age Americans that did not have a job. Today, there are 102 million working-age Americans that do not have a job. So how are things getting better? How do these job numbers that the government continually puts out, how is it a true reflection of what the economy is actually doing? It isn't. It is manipulated to create the illusion that everything is getting better. Now, we have hit the retail great rotation. And when we talk about bubbles, and we're talking about the stock market bubble, and there are many other bubbles, there's the housing bubble, there's the treasury bond bubble, there's the derivatives market, there are many things. But what is happening right now in the stock market? Again, we are hitting all-time highs like we've never seen before, and we've seen this before. We've seen it in the Great Depression. We've seen it in the dot-com. We see it in 2007, 2008. We have every single one of those points in time, we have hit all-time new highs. And what is the first thing that happens? The big players, the wealthy people, start unloading what they have. Now, we've seen this in real estate. We've seen the hedge funds, the investment companies who've been paying cash. They are now unloading real estate. They want to get out. Why? Because they understand the entire market is in a bubble. They built it up enough to convince the everyday person that real estate is making a comeback, which we know it's not. So these everyday people go in and they think they're flipping, they're buying houses, and then what are they doing? They're buying at the height. The same thing is happening in the stock market right now. The wealthy people, the investors, the financial institutions, the corporate insiders are now dumping their stock holdings at an historic pace. This is the first time in 5 years that these financial institutions, the corporate insiders, the wealthy, the 1%, are now shifting away from being a net buyer of stock to a net seller. But of course, if they are selling, who are they selling to? Well, guess what? All the retail investors right now are saying, oh, this is a great time to purchase. The stock market is continually going up. It hasn't come down. It just keeps going up. Now I'm getting in. This is the time. And it's funny. It happens in real estate. It happens in the stock market. It's happening in the treasury bond market. These people are now getting in. And guess what's going to happen? All the everyday person who's purchasing at this time, these are the people that are going to get screwed when the market starts to collapse. And now we are seeing the great rotation. The people with money who understand what is going on are starting to unload. The people that have no clue, who think that the market will continually go up forever, are the ones who are purchasing. And these people are going to be the ones holding on to this investment, which is going to plummet. And you know what's going to happen? Most of Americans are going to lose a lot of their wealth, just like we saw in 2008, where 38% of the people lost their wealth. And we're going to see the same thing happen again. Now, in Massachusetts, what they want to do is they're proposing to make mandatory home inspections for gun owners to keep the families safe. Well, let me just say this. This is completely against the Fourth Amendment and against the Second Amendment. The Bill of Rights and the Constitution say nothing about having someone come in and inspect your home. And this goes on to say, a Massachusetts policymaker has proposed handing police the authorization to search registered gun owners' home in order to ensure proper gun storage practices. And what they're saying is, we need the ability to enforce the state law and to keep everyone safe. Now, we have to remember, once you give authorities permission to enter your home for this reason, they're going to expand upon this. They're going to want to enter your home for other reasons without a warrant. And this is completely unconstitutional. No one is allowed to enter your home and do any type of search without a search warrant with probable cause according to the Fourth Amendment. And we can see what they're trying to do right now. It's almost like Obamacare, where they have the statement in where they want to come in and inspect your home to make sure that you have a safe surroundings in your home if you are using the Obamacare exchange. And again, once we start letting people break the Bill of Rights, which they already are doing with the Constitution, with the NDAA, with the Patriot Act, and many other bills that are being proposed, they will take this a step further, because what do we understand? We understand their main goal is, one, is to get rid of this pesky Constitution. Number two, they need to get rid of the weapons from the people and disarm them so they can get rid of the Constitution. And we understand that this is their main goal. And you can see what they are doing right now. They are monitoring everyone's phone calls, their emails, putting people on different lists. They're going to have eventually about 7,500 drones in the air to monitor you. And what are we seeing now? Well, we're seeing many cities use the money from the Department of Homeland Security to create different type of surveillance cities. And in Seattle, they have used the DHS's money from a grant, which is $2.6 million, to create what's called a mesh network. And this is a wireless network which allows law enforcement to connect to and turn more quickly, share large chunks of data, such as surveillance camera recordings and other high-res information. It also allows them to capture everyone's phone calls if they're hooking up into the wireless. It also allows them to intercept their pictures and things like that. And we are seeing this happen all over the place. In Las Vegas, they are putting in something called IntelliStreets, which allows these light bulbs not just to illuminate the street, it allows them to hear and to record what is happening on the streets. And these lampposts are hooked up by Wi-Fi, and all the information is streamed across, and it goes right to the law enforcement officers, and they can see everything that's going on very easily. And what happens when they get this information, it goes into a computer database, and it allows them to create a social profile of each person. And they can expand upon this with facial recognition. And this way they can see, who's who, put names to what is going on, and track you throughout the city. And we see more and more cities doing this. We also know that the FBI is also creating a facial recognition system, which also allows to detect the behavior, to see, which person is a threat, which person is not a threat. Puts it into the database, into social profiling, and it allows them to keep track of where you are, what you spent, who you are involved with, and this is becoming a police state. Pretty much that's it. It violates every single constitutional right, and it is completely null and void. And we know why they are doing this, because they need to keep track of everyone, because when the time comes, when the collapse happens, they need the ability to get the people that are a threat to the central bankers, to the government officials, because they do not want to give up their power. They rather go down fighting. Okay. Now, we understand that the U.S. is losing control in the Middle East. We are seeing that Saudi Arabia is talking to China. We understand that Egypt is talking to Russia now. We see Libya is having a huge problem. The puppet government that the United States central bankers have put into place are having a very tough time. Protesters have shut down Libya's gas export pipeline to Italy, and the puppet government is threatening to use force right now, and we could see something, we could see the U.S. step in, or they might go ahead and do what they did in Egypt, where they just cut all the budget. But again, they are losing control of the Middle East, and if they see a threat to the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency, believe me, you're going to see them swoop in and do something. Now, Greece intercepted a mystery ship with 20,000 assault rifles on board, and they don't know where these were headed, but we can make some guesses here. They are most likely headed to Syria to help the paid mercenaries fight Assad, because we have to remember the central bank, the United States government, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and other Middle Eastern countries still have the same agenda: to remove Assad from government, put the U.S. dollar in as the reserve currency, and then eventually get into Iran. So even though we see this illusion of we're going along with the chemical disposal program, we're making peace with Iran, this is a complete illusion to make everyone think that the United States at this time is looking for peace. The central bankers are looking for peace. That's all we want, is peace. It is furthest from the truth. And what we're seeing since the central bankers and U.S. government has lost control of Egypt and cut aid, cut military supplies to Egypt. Egypt now is welcoming Russia, and now the Russian warship has docked in Egypt in the port of Alexandria, and they're going to do business to see if Russia can supply and give aid to Egypt. And what Russia wants is they want the use of their port. That's pretty much it. United States moving out, Russia moving in. Now, over the weekend, Russian bombers were practicing bombing along Sweden, along Poland, along the Baltic states, and 5 Russian planes, including 2 bombers, were detected via radar, and they were flying off the Gulf of Finland, and the Swedish launched aircraft to intercept, and the Russian government was saying we were in international airspace and we're allowed to do this. And you can see that either country right now is flexing muscles, and we're seeing this happen all over the place at this time. Now, we understand that the U.S. is encircling China, and they're setting up bases, moving military assets. So what China is doing right now is they're setting up an air defense zone. The Chinese People Liberation Army is considering setting up an air defense identification zone that would overlap with Japan's over the East China Sea, a move that is likely to heighten tensions between the two countries. And this air defense zone serves as a national defense perimeter that triggers fighter scrambles when foreign aircraft enter the zone without prior notification. So we can see what is happening right now. We can see that China is positioning their military assets. We can see Japan is positioning their military assets. We can see the United States is setting up bases and encircling China at this time, and they are using North Korea to bring in more missiles to encircle China on that side of China. And we can see what is happening. It is all coming together. Everyone is preparing because what do they know? They understand that these central bankers will not give up. They do not want peace, and they will move forward with some type of an agenda. And what we are seeing in Iran, we understand that they're going through the peace talks. They're trying to make deals, and Israel is opposing it. Saudi Arabia is opposing it. France is opposing it right now. And in Iran, we are seeing many different things happen. Well, the deputy industries minister was assassinated, and we have to think back to a couple months ago when the cyber attack commander was also assassinated in Iran. So we're seeing high-level people being assassinated within Iranians' cabinet at this time. And this should raise some red flags that something is going on, because it's not, you just don't have high-ranking officials assassinated for no reason. And we do see Obama. I reported this in my last report that they're easing sanctions in Iran, making it seem like we're looking for peace, we're getting closer to a deal, we're easing up on sanctions. But then we have to think, and we understand that Iran has applied to become part of the BRIC nation, or they might have already, I haven't seen a report yet, but there are rumblings that they have already part of the BRIC nation, and these sanctions would have absolutely no effect on Iran at all. And right now, Iranian sources are reporting that China and Iran have agreed to a unique method of repayment for China's past oil purchases, which allows China to avoid any U.S. penalties. Very interesting, but let's go further here. Chinese have agreed to send, as a substitute for cash payments for oil purchased in the past, capital equipment, technology, materials for over 40 joint infrastructure development projects with Iran. So what do we see now? We see China, which is part of the BRIC nations, and Iran who wants to be part of the BRIC nations, making deals. Chinese investment in Iran increases as Obama eases sanctions. And right now, China has agreed to finance the development of more oil refineries in Iran. Now, do you think this is why the U.S., the central bankers, are saying, oh, we better do something, because these sanctions right now have never caused a stranglehold on Iran, because they've been getting money from other nations which is outside of the U.S. sanctions. And the Iranian government has been supplying China and other Asian countries with oil for years, bypassing the sanctions. So all this talk and all this rhetoric of these sanctions have Iran almost bankrupt are pretty much false. They really haven't done anything, and they know it. And now they realize they can't keep up the illusion anymore, so they're changing tactics. The Chinese right now are helping Iran to rebuild their country's infrastructure, which includes their nuclear program in exchange for oil and a stake in Iran's future economic development. And guess what? China is making deals all over the place. The U.S. realizes this, the central bankers realize this, and they have no alternative but to take this new route down the road here, which does not mean they do not have something planned, something maybe like a false flag event to get something started, because these sanctions are doing absolutely nothing. Now, a couple of years ago, the U.S. government released Sputniks on the Iranian nuclear program, and it kind of made their nuclear program stop for a while, and it made the centrifuges go out of whack, and they had many problems. But what's happening right now is, since it hit Iranian nuclear program, it also infected the Russian nuclear plant, and this malware has even reached the International Space Station, so it's spreading all over the place, and they're having a very tough time stopping this malware from infecting everything. Now, there are additional reports that al-Qaeda are making threats to America. And right now, Vice News posted video with interviews of British men who traveled to the combat zone to pair up with some al-Qaeda and al-Nusra groups. And what they are saying now is, and I'm going to quote this, "I say to United States that your time will come and we will bleed you to death. We will raise the flag in the White House. We will. My feeling is great. I'm happy. I'm here. I am here to please Allah. I am not here to please anyone else but Allah." And what they are saying is, they are spreading this propaganda to let us know that some type of false flag event will occur very soon. And this goes on to say that after Syria, the aim is to bring back the honor of Islam to al-Qaeda, to all over the Muslim world, and Britain will be next. Send one of the British jihadists. From this land we will march toward the al-Qaeda mosque in the name of Allah, and then we will move into the United States. So we can see what is happening at this time. We've heard threats before from al-Qaeda. We know that al-Shabaab is recruiting people within the United States. We understand there are lone wolves running around in the United States, and the FBI and DHS saying that it is very hard to track these people. They don't know exactly where everyone is. We understand there are nuclear weapons that have been moved without paperwork. We don't know exactly where those are. We understand that the United States, the central bankers, are making plans and peace with Iran right now, but we know for a fact that there can't be any peace because they need to keep the US dollar propped up or the entire thing comes collapsing down. We also understand there are many drills occurring this week. We have the power grid drill. And again, if we see some type of denial of service attacks on financial institutions and they're being reported in the mainstream media, this is the time we have to start to worry because this means that something else is occurring. If we don't see this, this could be just a practice run and a drill, and they don't get the go live signal. And this doesn't mean that something is not going to happen later on, because something will happen later on, because we've seen this in the past where they have their drills, they practice, and guess what? A month later, a month and a half later, all of a sudden there is a false flag. And we understand from all of these threats and from what is going on that there will be more and more threats coming out, and we will see definitely a false flag event to get us into Syria or Iran. We understand that there is intel from Syria that Assad might be, and this is from CNN, hiding chemical weapons that he took out beforehand and stashed away. And we can definitely see this being used as a false flag to get into Syria if there is a chemical weapon detonated within the United States, if Iran uses some type of nuclear weapon within the United States. And we understand it's not really coming from Iran or Syria. We understand it's coming from the central bankers creating the false flag to make us to believe that something is actually happening. And we can definitely see something like this occurring. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.